Shalom, I'm Brother Rael from Reunited Soul, and in this video, I'm going to discuss the Mosaic laws regarding psychics, magic, witchcraft, and child sacrifice. So let us nourish our soul with scripture that we may reunite with the Most High, the Elohim of Yisrael. All scriptures will be read verbatim from the King James Version Bible. Now let's get right into it. I'd like to welcome you to the second video discussion of my Mosaic Law series. It is necessary for our people to familiarize themselves with the Law of Moshe, also known as the Law or the 613 Commandments, which can be found in the Torah, that is located in the books of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The number 613 derives from the sum of 248 positive commandments, as in, do such and such a thing, and 365 negative commandments, as in, not to do such and such a thing. Some may contest the number 613 because of duplicate or repetitive commandments. Some believe that the number 613 may be symbolic. However, that is not the focus of this discussion, although I will try to point out duplicate commandments when I come across them. Now, I will utilize the number 613 in this discussion for the purpose of identifying specific commandments. And you may notice that the 613 commandments can be arranged in different order depending on the source that you use. It would be useful when dealing with the 613 commandments to identify the source that you are referencing. For example, in this discussion, I will cover commandments number 47 through number 67 from the widely accepted list from the 12th century scholar Maimonides, who is known to be the first to document the commandments from the Torah. So if your list of laws are arranged in an order that is different from the one in this discussion, now you know why. Also, for the sake of this discussion, I will from here on refer to the 613 commandments as the law, as in, I will point out laws number 47 through number 67. Family, we must understand the times we find ourselves in. There is much chaos, confusion, and conflict within our communities. Today, many of our people are conflicted as to whether we are to follow the Mosaic law as Torah instructs us, or do we disregard the law because it was done away with by way of the New Testament Messiah. Others will argue that some laws are to be kept while others cannot be kept. I believe that it's best to, at the very least, become familiar with the law in order to gain a better understanding of it. Now let's understand the importance of keeping the law from Moshe himself, according to Deuteronomy chapter 4, verses 5 through 9. And I read, Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that ye should do so in the land whither ye go to possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, Surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what nation is there so great, who hath God so nigh unto them, as the Lord our God is in all things that we call upon him for? And what nation is there so great, that have statutes and judgments so righteous as all this law, which I set before you this day? Only take heed to thyself, and keep thy soul diligently, lest thou forget the things which thine eyes have seen, and lest they depart from thy heart all the days of thy life, but teach them to thy sons and thy sons' sons. If I may touch on verse 6 for a moment. Keeping the law is our wisdom and understanding in the sight of the nations, which is why the nations cannot see us for who we truly are if we're not keeping the law. Which is why they intentionally redirect us away from keeping the law by teaching us that the law cannot be kept. The burden was too heavy, and the New Testament Messiah has done away with the law. We as a people no longer see the value in keeping the law of Moshe. We no longer see value in keeping the covenant with the Most High, and we simply cannot seem to connect the dots as to why other nations cannot see our wisdom and understanding as a people, and rightfully so, if we are not utilizing what the Most High gave us. Now consider this, brothers and sisters. In the absence of the Most High, we are merely a people without a nation, and a people without purpose, as we try in vain to fit in a world that is in opposition to our very existence. Now I just read Moshe instructing us on the importance of the law, but let us also hear from what thus saith the Most High about the Mosaic law according to Malachi chapter 4 verse 4, and I read, "Remember ye the law of Moses my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb for all Israel, with the statutes and judgments." So there you have it, family. Remember the law of Moshe, keep it as best you can, and teach it to your children. Now, without further ado, let's begin with law number 47 and number 48, which shares the same scripture. And again, in this discussion, I will state the number of the law, recite the description of the law, and give the scripture that pertains to that particular law. Law number 47, not to perform uv, which refers to communicating with the dead. Or you may even see it as written, not to perform as or acknowledge those who purport to channel spirits. And law number 48, not to perform yadoni, which refers to magic. Or you may see it written as, not to perform as or consult fortune tellers. The scripture assigned to these two laws is Leviticus chapter 19 verse 31, and I read, "Regard not them that have familiar spirits, neither seek after wizards to be defiled by them. I am the Lord your God." And law number 49, not to pass your children through the fire to Molech. The scripture assigned to this law is Leviticus chapter 18 verse 21, and I read, "And thou shalt not let any of thy seed pass through the fire to Molech, neither shalt thou profane the name of thy God. I am the Lord." Law number 50, not to erect a column in a public place of worship. The scripture assigned to this law is Deuteronomy chapter 16 verse 22, and I read, "Neither shalt thou set thee up any image, which the Lord thy God hateth." Although idolatry is covered in laws number 24 through number 46, it is referred to again in laws number 51 through number 58. Law number 51, not to bow down on smooth stone. Or you may see it written as, not to erect an idol or bow down on smooth stone for worship. The scripture assigned to this law is Leviticus chapter 26 verse 1, and I read, "Ye shall make you no idols nor graven image, neither rear you up a standing image, neither shall ye set up any image of stone in your land, to bow down unto it, for I am the Lord your God." Law number 52, not to plant a tree in the temple courtyard. The scripture assigned to this law is Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 21, and I read, Thou shalt not plant thee a grove of any trees near unto the altar of the Lord thy God, which thou shalt make thee. Law number 53, to destroy idols and their accessories. The scripture assigned to this law is Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 2, and I read, Ye shall utterly destroy all the places wherein the nations which ye shall possess serve their gods, upon the high mountains and upon the hills, and under every green tree. Law number 54, not to derive benefit from idols and their accessories. The scripture assigned to this law is Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 26, and I read, Neither shalt thou bring an abomination into thine house, lest thou be a cursed thing like it, but thou shalt utterly detest it, and thou shalt utterly abhor it, for it is a cursed thing. Law number 55, not to derive benefit from ornaments of idols. The scripture assigned to this law is Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 25, and I read, The graven images of their gods shall ye burn with fire. Thou shalt not desire the silver or gold that is on them, nor take it unto thee, lest thee be snared therein, for it is an abomination to the Lord thy God. Laws number 56 and number 57 shares the same scripture regarding idolaters. I will read both laws, then the assigned scripture. Law number 56, not to make a covenant with idolaters. Law number 57, not to show favor to them. The scripture assigned to these two laws is Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 2, and I read, And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Law number 58, not to let them dwell in our land. The scripture assigned to this law is Exodus chapter 23, verse 33, and I read, They shall not dwell in thy land, lest they make thee sin against me. For if thou serve their gods, it will surely be a snare unto thee. Law number 59, not to imitate them in customs and clothing. The scripture assigned to this law is Leviticus chapter 20, verse 23, and I read, And ye shall not walk in the manners of the nation which I cast out before you, for they committed all these things, and therefore I abhorred them. Law number 60, not to be superstitious. The scripture assigned to this law is Leviticus chapter 19, verse 26, and I read, Ye shall not eat anything with the blood, neither shall ye use enchantment, nor observe times. Law number 61, not to go into a trance to foresee events, etc. The scripture assigned to this law is Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 10, and I read, There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughters to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch. Law number 62, not to engage in astrology. The scripture assigned to this law is Leviticus chapter 19, verse 26, which happens to be the same scripture assigned to law number 60, not to be superstitious. And I read, Ye shall not eat anything with the blood, neither shall ye use enchantment, nor observe times. Laws number 63 through number 66 shares the same scripture. I will read the laws, then the scripture assigned to them all. Law number 63, not to mutter incantations. Law number 64, not to attempt to engage the dead in conversation. Law number 65, not to consult the oath, or you may also see it read as not to consult with mediums. Law number 66, not to consult the Yidoni, or you may also see it read as not to consult with wizards. The scripture assigned to laws number 63 through number 66 is Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 11, and I read, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. Now at this time, I would like to note that laws number 65 and 66 are very similar to laws number 47 and 48. However, 47 and 48 commands us not to perform oath and Yidoni, whereas 65 and 66 command us not to consult the oath and the Yidoni. Perform or consult is the key difference here. Now we come to the last law in this series, psychics, magic, witchcraft, and child sacrifice. Law number 67, not to perform acts of magic, or you may also see it read as not to do sorcery. This law shares the same scripture as law number 61, not to go into a trance to foresee events, etc. The scripture assigned to these two laws is Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 10, and I read, there shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that uses divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch. So that completes the Mosaic laws regarding psychics, magic, witchcraft, and child sacrifice. Now, some of you may even think to yourselves, this is a no-brainer. Who would be so foolish to delve into such darkness? Who in their right mind that has a covenant with the Most High would involve themselves with psychics, magic, witchcraft, and child sacrifice? Well, let's see. For starters, the first king of Yisrael, King Saul. When he sought the services of the witch of Endor in order to communicate with the prophet Samuel, who was no longer dwelling among the living. Let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 28 verses 6 through 7 to find out why King Saul chose the forbidden path in order to communicate with the prophet Samuel. And I read, and when Saul inquired of the Lord answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets. Then Saul said unto his servants, seek me a woman that hath a familiar spirit, that I may go to her, and inquire of her. And his servant said to him, behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit at Endor. King Saul attempted to bypass the Most High in order to get the information that he sought. Just like many of our people today, they are bypassing what thus saith the Most High and seeking strange writings from unknown sources. So as you can see, these laws are not simply addressing something so far-fetched or so far back in time that it has no relevance to the Most High's people today. Whether during King Saul's time to this very day, people will go to strange lengths to obtain whatever it is they desire out of desperation, foolishness, or greed. As a matter of fact, we have some of our people today injecting mystical and magical literature into our awakening. Yes, indeed, brothers and sisters. We have men calling themselves Israelites with large social media platforms that are attempting the curiosities of our people with the ideas of accessing hidden knowledge and mystical powers that are found in rare and expensive books. Pretty much using the same bait used to lure people into cults: knowledge, power, and a sense of belonging to some kind of exclusive group. And of course, the grift or the hustle is for his followers to send their money in order for these hard-to-find and expensive books to be purchased by him and shared on his social media platform. Keeping in mind that this hustler claims that the Most High appointed him to receive and understand this information hidden in such books. Yet this hustler is having his followers finance his endeavor. And many of our people call themselves woke. However, they are none the wiser when scammed by these old schemes the church played on the black community for generations before the awakening. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 29. And I read, "And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness. And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee." For those of you who believed the church when they told you that you were blessed and highly favored, let me remind you that we are still in the land of our captivity, with the curses of Deuteronomy chapter 28 still in effect. And why is that, you ask? Because after slavery, the church taught our people that the law was done away with by way of the New Testament Messiah. So our people disregarded the law of Moshe. Now let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15, to find out what happens when we fail to hearken to the voice of the Most High and disregard what he commanded us to do. And I read, "But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee." And these curses are explained very clearly in verses 16 through 68. And let's be very clear. The Mosaic law is very necessary to set definitive boundaries. Without these boundaries, it is quite apparent that our people will do just about anything for fame or fortune. And they will target time and time again those of our people who are vulnerable, suffering the most, and those who are marginalized. If you have not already, please take a look at my video discussion, Side Hustling the Awakening, where I go into more detail. In conclusion, the Most High knows what his people are capable of. Without the law, it would be difficult to distinguish the Most High's people from the heathen that they are scattered among. Which is why the church taught us that the law of Moshe was done away with, that we may adopt the ways of the heathen. Which is why we have an overabundance of churches in the black community, leading us further away from the Most High, his covenant, and the law of Moshe. And to be quite honest, we have so many churches in the black community, they are merely a stone's throw away from one another. A stone throws away, brothers and sisters. Our communities in the land of our captivity are meticulously engineered to be exactly how they are and what they are. Nothing happens in our communities by chance. It is painstakingly orchestrated. Brothers and sisters, at the end of the day, when you are unfamiliar with the original product, whatever that product may be, you simply will not recognize when you are sold a fraudulent or knockoff of that product. And likewise, when you are unfamiliar with Torah, which explains in detail the covenant the Most High have with his people, what he promised to his people, and what he expects from his people, you simply will not recognize when you are being sold a fraudulent covenant that conflicts with the Most High's covenant. Family, there is no substitute for Torah. Neither can you attach a strange doctrine to it and expect Torah believers to fall in line with it. Understand, brothers and sisters, when you are taught to believe the New Testament doctrine before Torah, your understanding of Torah is simply corrupted. Let me repeat that. When you are taught to believe the New Testament doctrine before Torah, your understanding of Torah is simply corrupted. Now, I read these scriptures earlier in the discussion, but please allow me to recite them once again as I leave you with the words of Moshe about keeping the law according to Deuteronomy chapter 4, verses 5 through 6. And I read, Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that ye shall do so in the land whither ye go to possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, Surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. With that said, always keep your trust in the Most High. Love Him with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. See to it that your household is in line with the word of the Most High as best you can. I thank you for taking the time to watch. Again, I am Rael, your reunited soul brother. And with that, I say to you, Shalom.